Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.
Hello and a very warm welcome to this week's Racing Post Football Postcast. I'm Dave Clark from the Racing Post. What a week it has been. The special one is gone. The babyface assassin is in. Cup draws galore, and we've got obviously all the domestic action to get stuck into. The team this week, I'm joined in the studio by Racing Post's Mark Langdon and Dan Childs, fine football betting brains we have here. And of course we've got Malachy Rooney on the line from our friends at Paddy Power. And I'll start with you, Mark. He's gone. The special one has gone.
Yeah, I'm surprised in some ways, and then not in others. I mean, obviously, it reached a stage where United felt they had no option. It still shocks me, just in regards to the fact that I felt like you may as well just hold on to him until the end of the season. But they obviously had come to the conclusion that he'd become a poison in the dressing room, and they had to do something. His time won't be remembered fondly Old Trafford, I think it's fair to say, even though the supporters were mainly blaming Ed Woodward for United's downfall more than Jose Mourinho. Just his demeanour, particularly this year. I mean, when he didn't get what he wanted in the transfer window, it just felt like a season of chaos from the start. He was pulling fights with Martial over the fact that he was going off to see his baby being born and not rushing back to that tour. The fights with Pogba, one of which was for the cameras. You remember that one where he was telling him off for the cameras. The football was bad. They had some injuries, but you've got to be able to deal with that. You tell the defenders before the season starts they're all rubbish and he wants to replace them, and then he's having to go to them on a week-by-week basis and then pick them. I mean, it doesn't do much for the confidence. I still think the problem at United is bigger than just Jose Mourinho, though, and whoever comes in, they haven't, since Fergie left, he did so much that there's no director of football, there's no sort of scouting policy in place. He kind of just oversaw everything. When he left, it just needed too much replacing. You've seen it with Arsene Wenger. Arsenal kind of let Arsene Wenger have that last year, and while he was doing that, they managed to bring in Minislet from Borussia Dortmund. There was the guy from Barcelona. So they were putting those kind of places in there. The building blocks were being put in for life after Wenger. I still don't think United, as bizarre as it sounds, have recovered from Ferguson leaving, and the next manager's got just as big a job as what Mourinho had. Strange appointment for the interim manager? Well, once they said he had to be somebody with United connections, you're looking down the list and thinking, well, what, Steve Bruce? I mean, he's somebody that's maybe got more experience. I wouldn't like to judge Solskjaer purely on what he did at Cardiff. I mean, it was a club in turmoil at the time. He didn't do a good job. He did a terrible job. You can't get away from that. But he has, I just don't understand why it had to be somebody with United links. So that doesn't make much sense to me. You wouldn't do that in many other sort of businesses. But once it was going to be somebody with United links, Laurent Blanc would have been the first choice for me, but he probably didn't want the job on a short-term basis. And I can understand why. Solskjaer's got less of a reputation, and I mean, he can't do much worse. I mean, how much lower can United sink? Maybe one or two spots, but they're going out of the Champions League to Paris Saint-Germain, whoever's in charge, so it doesn't really matter. Dan, you're our Norwegian football expert, the Racing Post. He's not, he isn't, but what do you think of the appointment?
I just think I agree with Mark that it's a strange one that you're just restricting yourself, even for an interim job for people with United links. I just think they're such a massive club. You should be casting your net a little bit further afield. I mean, the idea of the interim is they do look like they're looking to they're going to move heaven and earth to try and get Pochettino. I think that's becoming clear already. So
will he go there though? Is that a
that's
a big club?
That's the question. It'll be a lot harder, I think, to get him now than it would have been, maybe a couple of years ago when Spurs were not as far along in their development. Now the new stadium's very close, so I think, and the new contract is a big thing as well. I mean, the key, I think, in the summer when Real Madrid come for Pochettino, I think he would have gone if Levy hadn't about a week before given him that new contract. I think he was one of the top 3 paid managers in the league, and that was before Mourinho went. So I'm assuming now he's in the top 2. So a lot of the time in the past, Spurs can't compete in terms of wages and financially. I mean, Man United might offer him a bigger deal, but he is on a very, very good deal at Spurs. Got a team that's, you know, a fair bit ahead of United at the moment. As Mark's alluded to, there's a hell of a lot needs to be done at United, and even if you've got the money, it's not that easy always to attract the best players. There's so much surgery needs doing there, and you know, he may look at it and think, you know, am I better there, or am I better carrying on what I've started at Spurs?
Or Real Madrid. I mean, if Real Madrid come back in the summer,
right.
I mean, particularly for a Spanish speaker, I would have thought Real Madrid is the bigger. You know, it's a bigger job than Manchester United.
And that's my argument. If because of that new contract, he's actually tipped the balance and he's not gone to Real Madrid, well, the contract situation's the same. Surely he's less likely to go to Manchester United. It's more likely that maybe at the end of the season, that if Real Madrid come calling, you know, he turns United down and goes there.
Well, it is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for the time being. Malachy, what are your thoughts? And I'm sure Paddy Power have got all sorts of specials. Who's going to be manager at the start of next season, I'm sure.
Yeah, so just to give you some of the prices on that, Pochettino is the favourite at 6-4. Solskjaer is second in the betting at 5-2 to stay on. Allegri from Juventus is 6-1, followed by Zidane at 7-1. Laurent Blanc is 14s, Eddie Howe's 16s, and then it's 25 Spar. I'm kind of happy enough that United finally pulled the plug. To be honest, I thought they should have done it sooner. I just think that the Solskjaer appointment is a nothing appointment until the end of the season. And as Mark said, I mean, why does it have to be someone that had a previous United connection? I think a lot of other clubs around the world have done that before, and I don't really think that it benefits them the way they think it does. The only thing I can think of is that the board are possibly thinking of themselves is to put in an ex-hero. He's a lot less likely to take any slack between now and the end of the season, and that might relieve the pressure on them somewhat while they actually seek for who they want. I'd be shocked if Solskjaer was manager on the first day of next season, regardless of what happens. I don't think they're good enough to do anything regardless of what he does to warrant staying on. And then with Pochettino, it's kind of like what the lads are saying. Does he go for Madrid? Does he stay at Spurs? Or would he even accept the job if it was offered? A couple of lads in the office think Allegri might be in with a shout as well. He's third in the betting. If he kind of gets tired of the gig at Juventus, I think he'd be a great appointment for United, and he could sort a lot of stuff out for them. But the problems do go a lot deeper than the manager. But Mourinho was, aside from the results, I just think that he's such a negative impact. I mean, how many of the players would have been actively looking to leave in January and also organising moves to their agents during the rest of the season, because they're not going to get top 4 now. They're going to be out of everything soon enough, I think, in 2019. So it probably was the best decision for everyone overall.
I think the interesting one is Allegri, really, because if United are convinced that Pogba is, you know, the absolute future for them, and he's a money-making machine, but he also, you know, on paper is their best player as well, even though he hasn't always shown it. Allegri did get the best out of him at Juventus, so maybe there's a relationship there, that you're not only getting a great coach, you're getting somebody that has worked and knows how to get the best out of your star player. So that could be an interesting one. I think Allegri will want to come to the Premier League at some stage. The City job's locked down, the Liverpool one's not going anywhere for a while. I mean, Chelsea have had a couple of Italian managers, but you'd think that they'd give Sarri a bit of time. Arsenal have only just appointed Emre. I mean, I suppose if Pochettino went to United, Allegri, I'm not sure if Tottenham's a big enough draw, but you know, potentially, I can see him working in England, you know, before too long. So maybe that one to United is an interesting runner.
Before we move on, Solskjaer, what do we make of him? I mean, I saw written somewhere that he was kind of described as, well, he might be really good at skeletrics, but he's now getting into a Formula One car racing against Lewis Hamilton, which I thought was a little bit harsh, but what do we make of him?
I saw somebody say he should be replacing Lukaku, not Mourinho. I think it's really difficult to judge. I mean, his record in Norway's nothing special, but I mean, Rosenborg are the top team there, so it's hard, I suppose, for Mulder to really, you know, to do too much. I mean, this is a completely different job, and I've absolutely no idea. And
so we don't think he's going to invigorate Man United and all of a sudden they're going to become world beaters. We can't see that one happening.
It's so hard to judge. I mean, my example of a similar sort of size club where Graham Potter was, and at Östersund in Sweden, and that still only qualified him in terms of what he'd shown to get a job at Swansea. Now that kind of gives you an idea of the level where at the moment, management-wise, Solskjaer would be unless he had Man United connections. The only reason he's got this opportunity at United is because of his Manchester United connection. So how do you judge that?
I mean, it could be a case of actually, he'll be better with better players, and that, what he tried to do at Cardiff didn't work because Cardiff weren't good enough, and nor were the players at Mulder. You
just don't know, do you?
It's impossible. I mean, anyone I think that really has a strong opinion. I wouldn't trust that opinion too much, to be honest.
Right, it'll be intriguing viewing nonetheless. Right, let's move on to cup action, domestic and European. Let's go domestic to start with. Obviously, we had the draw for the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup last night. And Malachy, have you got some betting there for us?
Yeah, so in the outright betting, Man City are clear favourites at 8-13, followed by a split with Chelsea and Spurs, who are both 7-2, and then Burton are unlikely winners at 100-1.
Unsurprising given the draw, Mark, that betting?
Yeah, I mean, I think Man City, I think I'd back them 8-13 to beat Tottenham. It's almost priced up now. I think I'd back them 8-13 to win the cup against Tottenham, albeit that would Spurs have home advantage? That's a hard one to argue, isn't it? I mean, when they played in the semi-finals last year, I argued that I didn't think that there was that much advantage, and Manchester United beat them. Against Chelsea, I'd still take City on a neutral venue, 8-13. So they're probably fair enough. In that other game, Tottenham-Chelsea, I mean, I think it's an absolute pick-em. There's virtually nothing between them in the Premier League. It could come down to which manager picks the stronger team, but I assume they probably both will. I think Paddy's have priced it up absolutely spot on.
Do you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah, I think with the Spurs-Chelsea game, I just worry a little bit. I think Chelsea's squad is a little bit deeper than Spurs, and once you've got through the...
Just on that though, Dan, does that mean that Sarri maybe will be more inclined to make changes?
Possibly, could work that other way.
That's the interesting factor in that.
That could work, in Spurs' favour in that way, but if they do go with full-strength teams, I think there's a better chance that Chelsea will have more players available to choose from than Spurs will. I mean, Spurs have already got 5 or 6 players out, and a lot of fixtures to play between now and the semi-final first leg.
And this week also we had the Champions League draw. Malachy, have you got some betting there for us for that one as well, please?
Yeah, so Man City are the favourites here as well at 3-1. Barcelona come second at 9-2, followed by Juventus at 13-2. PSG are 7-1. Liverpool 10-1, Real Madrid 12s, and then it's 14s bar.
What do you make of the draw, Mark, before we talk outright?
I think that obviously Man City have absolutely lucked out. You couldn't have got a better draw really than Schalke, who are playing absolutely terribly in the Bundesliga. I think Paris Saint-Germain are quite happy with getting drawing Manchester United. That was a nice one. I think in terms of the other English teams, unless Bayern have major surgery in January, and they are being linked with a couple of pretty big moves, I think it's a perfect matchup for Liverpool. I think they've got too much pace for them all over the pitch. And I was asked on The Guardian, I did the Guardian football podcast on Monday, and I hadn't seen any prices because it was sort of as the draw was happening. What do you make of Tottenham Dortmund? I said Tottenham narrow favourites for me. That's exactly how it's priced up, yeah.
Some good matchups. I mean, you say that the City game's a bit of a mismatch, perhaps, but some nice matchups there.
I think that there's one. If there's to be like one, how on earth did they go out? It might come Lyon-Barcelona, because Lyon have shown twice against Man City that they quite enjoy playing against teams like that, and that they've got a bit about them. So, if there's to be a way out there shock, it might come there.
Dan, what are your thoughts?
I think there's 2 potential other upsets. I'll just give a slight chance to Ajax against Real Madrid. I think Real Madrid are a little bit similar to Bayern Munich, a very big club that aren't actually punching their weight at the moment. And Ajax against Bayern Munich in the group actually got 2 draws against them, didn't they? So if they can kind of... If the knockout match goes a similar way, I wouldn't completely write them off. Obviously, Real Madrid favourites. And the other one where the outsider I'll give a chance is Atletico Madrid against Juventus. I just think they're a side that defends so well, manage these games really well. I just think Juventus could be maybe a little bit vulnerable in that tie.
What are your thoughts, Malachy, and that draw? What kind of impact did that have on the outright book?
Well, PSG would have shortened on the back against United, which is seen as a favourable enough draw. Drift then obviously for all the other favourites, just purely because City got such a handy draw. I think City there was only 4 teams that could get, so they weren't going to be stung too badly regardless of who they got. Bayern Munich then drifted because obviously Liverpool was such a difficult second round tie. I actually think Munich will buy a couple of players in the January window. I think it's the first year this year. I could be mistaken, but you can actually buy players and they're not cup tied.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so if they've already played for someone, like that's a pretty big deal for a team who's struggling in the first half of the season. They can go into the upper echelons of the market and pick someone out that can make a difference. I think that'd be a brilliant match as well. But I'd echo the sentiments of the lads there. Lyon will cause Barcelona problems. I think Messi's papering over a lot of cracks for them in the league just by individual performances, and then Madrid have been a little bit farcical as well. Ajax I thought were brilliant in the group stages, so they could definitely cause them some concerns as well. I don't see United having a hope against PSG. I actually think I would rather back Dortmund than Spurs at the prices. I think Dortmund are going quite well, and again there's so many great matches. Like it's good that it's 2 matches each night, at least you'll be able to see most of them. But City the big winners in the draw.
And what does the Paddy Power book like? You got liabilities on Man City?
Yeah, we do. The big liability is on Liverpool. So I think regardless of what competition they're playing in, they're just so heavily backed all the time. And they were at kind of reasonably backable prices as well. So they're the big loser for us. Even at United's huge prices, there's not really much action for them. City are a loser, but as the competition goes on, we actually would expect, because they're not that big of a loser, to come green in the book. And then Juventus were a huge loser earlier on in the season, and that kind of diminished just when when they signed Ronaldo. There was a serious amount of money came for them just before the season kicked off. Their tie against Atletico Madrid isn't the most favourable, obviously. It'd be like a game of chess in that one, but they'd also be an outstanding loser for us as well.
So if you had to pull the trigger now and back one, would it be Dortmund?
Would be Dortmund for me, yeah. I think the best you can get on them is about probably 28 to 1. I'd back them each way. It's not an easy tie by any stretch of the imagination, but if they do get past that, I think they can cause trouble to any of the teams that are left in it. I wouldn't be backing City at the price. I think they're a little bit short, 3 to 1. Like I don't want to say it's effectively a buy into the next round like Schalke or no Burton, but I mean you would have to expect that they'll qualify quite easily, and some of the other big guns are going to get knocked out. But I wouldn't be backing them at 3 to 1. I'd rather be on someone like Dortmund at the bigger price.
And Mark, if you had to pull the trigger now, the Champions League outright betting, where would you be?
Probably on an English winner. I think we'll get 3 in the quarterfinals. Somebody's got to draw Porto or Roma as well. I think City are the outstanding team. And Liverpool are probably not that far behind them.
Dan, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think specifically of the English teams, I quite like Liverpool's price. I mean, I think they were single figures and they've actually gone out. And when you look at having finished second in the group, you could have got the likes of Juventus, could have got Barcelona, Bayern Munich at the moment. If they don't add the players needed, I agree with Mark. I think I would strongly fancy Liverpool to come through that tie. So I'm not quite sure how their price has kind of edged out a little bit. And I think they're becoming backable. And PSG's the other one I would look at. They've had terrible luck with a draw in the past. This time they've got a very good draw. 7 to 1. Got fantastic players going forward. It wouldn't surprise me if they went a long way.
Good stuff. Right, let's move on then, because we've got lots to get through this busy. I was going to say festive period then, but I hate that phrase. This busy period we've got coming up. Friday night action. We've got 8 o'clock Wolves against Liverpool. Malachy, got some prices for us there?
Yeah, so Liverpool are the favourites here at 1 to 2. The draw is 10 to 3, and Wolves are outsiders at 11 to 2.
What are your thoughts?
I haven't had a win this run. I think the last 5 or 6, Wolves have kind of picked up a little bit recently. I think they regained their composure. That late winner against Newcastle and a solid win against Bournemouth. There were 2 games I watched and I thought they were much the better side in both matches. Liverpool have obviously been dominant in recent fixtures, and they were very, very good against United at the weekend, but there is an element of how poor United were, allowing so many shots, etc. But Liverpool are beating whoever they play. I just think for this game, the price is a little bit short for me. And just for context, Liverpool's price here away at Wolves is actually shorter than Arsenal or United went off at home to Wolves earlier in the season. I just think Wolves can create opportunities, and Liverpool have looking at the expected goals conceded and just stats like that to give an indicator, Liverpool have got away with a lot of missed chances that they have given up to the opposition. So I think Wolves might have enough about them to create, and if they can take them chances, I think they're good enough to get a draw. So I've gone for Wolves double chance at 13-8, and I like as a bit of a larger pick both teams to score and draw at 5-1.
Lovely. This one could be fast and furious, Mark, couldn't it? It could be a belter.
I think it'll be interesting. I don't know about fast and furious because I don't think Wolves will fall into the trap maybe of some other teams that play against Liverpool and sort of expose themselves defensively and allow, that pacing behind that we know Liverpool have got. I wouldn't put Liverpool in the Ackers. I think you can leave them alone at sort of 2s on. But I've gone for Liverpool to win by 1 goal. The only drop points they've had have been against Chelsea, Man City and Arsenal. But, Wolves have drawn with Arsenal and United and City, and they beat Chelsea as well. I just think it could be a similar game to the one they lost 3-2 against Tottenham, where Liverpool's just that extra quality that they have got in the final third with Mane, Salah, and then also you've got the option of bringing on a Shaqiri or something like that. That's where this game may be won or lost. So I'm going to go for Liverpool just. Although, like I say, I'm not overly excited by the 2s on.
How did Wolves set up when they were playing against the other big sides?
Well, they play the same every single week, 3-4-3, but it's just a case of them looking, even against Bournemouth last week, it was very much play on the counter, so there's not much space in behind. Moutinho and Neves don't sort of go too far away from those 3 centre-backs, and even the kind of wing-backs who have done very well going forward, they are still good enough defensively, so it's almost like a back 7 at times, and then they'll look to spring counters.
Dan, what do you think? 2 on Liverpool, the league leaders?
Yeah, I think that's a bit too short, actually. I'd go for the draw here. I think Wolves, the way they play is quite well suited to taking on the bigger clubs. They do, as Mark said, they do sit in and counter-attack, and it's worked pretty well for them in a lot of those games. 1 win, 3 draws and 1 defeat in matches against the big 6. It's a record that you've got to respect, really, and even against Bournemouth, they actually played that quite well. They just sat in. Bournemouth obviously got nowhere near the weapons that Liverpool have got, but they created very little. And Wolves are very good at closing those spaces down and restricting the opposition's chances. Liverpool, 5 wins in a row, but I just don't feel they're playing quite at the level they were earlier in the season. The tempo, the Man United game is hard to judge because it was towards the end of Mourinho's reign, and they were so poor at the moment, United. It's not really a team that you'd associate with past Manchester United teams. So I'm not so sure I'd be, desperate to be backing them at 2s on. I think tight game, take a chance on the draw.
Good stuff. Right, we'll head for a quick break, and then we've got loads more action to get stuck into.
Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and a grand up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.
Welcome along to the Racing Post Football Postcast. I'm Dave Clark, joined by colleagues Mark Langdon, Dan Childs in the studio. We've got Malachy Rooney on the line from our friends at Paddy Power. We're going to look at Saturday's games. Now we've got a midday kick-off, Arsenal against Burnley, 12:30 kick-off. Malachy, give us some prices for that one, please.
So Arsenal are the strong favourites here at 1-5. The draw is 11-2, and Burnley are outsiders at 14-1.
Arsenal obviously dumped out the Carabao by rivals Spurs. What are your thoughts on this one, Malachy?
Yeah, so it was a poor result and performance really for Arsenal at the weekend against Southampton as well, and they looked a little bit out of sorts defensively. They should have had enough in that game to get a draw. And then last night, I thought Spurs were quite good in the game. The assist from Kane for the second goal when he was just on the pitch, I thought was absolutely fantastic. But that being said, Arsenal, did they create enough to feel that they should have got a draw out of it? I didn't think so. I thought Spurs were a lot stronger than them and completely outplayed them. Burnley are one of the worst teams in the league. I would expect them to go down, and they'd actually be, unexpected points, rock bottom after 17 games. They've been very, very poor in certain matches. I don't see them having enough about them to keep Arsenal out, and probably the best they can hope for here is to deadlock it as long as possible. But I just think eventually Arsenal will wear them down, similar to Spurs did last week. And if they do get a goal maybe a little bit earlier than Spurs, they could really open them up. 76% of Arsenal's goals have come the second half this season, so I don't think that panic at the beginning of the game trying to seek an early goal, and after conceding 5 in their last 2, I think Arsenal's early focus could be on on just ensuring that they start the game defensively organised and don't give up any opportunities in the first 20 minutes. So I've gone for a little bit of a novelty pick really here. I've gone highest scoring half to be the second half, around the even money mark, and maybe a shade of odds on. I think that's I bet you're going to get a great run out of it at the game.
Yeah, I can see that being quite a popular bet. That one, Mark, is that Arsenal bubble burst, do we think?
I'm not sure they ever really had the bubble.
Well, they was on a bit of a run.
Yeah, was it 22 matches unbeaten? I did see somebody say, are we sure they were 22 matches unbeaten? Nobody was watching those Europa League games, and were they just saying that they won or drew them? I mean, look, you can't. I don't think you can. You shouldn't have got too excited by the 22 matches unbeaten, and now you probably don't get too downbeat over 2 defeats. One of which was against Tottenham, when it wasn't absolutely Arsenal's full strength team. That they're carrying a few injuries. The Southampton game, they had a lot of players out. I mean, we mentioned it on last week's podcast about their sort of vulnerability. So again, I'm not too downbeat. I think that Arsenal, are 5th best team in the league, and that's where they'll probably finish. So
this is textbook Arsenal, this game, isn't it? Flat track bullies at home, odds on, give them a pasting.
Well, if you want to go down the textbook route, I mean, they haven't been ahead at half time in any game so far. So I was looking at the draw half time, Arsenal full time. I agree with Maliki about maybe the second half most goals. Also, time of the first goal over sort of 20 odd minutes. Burnley were time wasting from very early on at Wembley last week. They
50 minutes, I think they were.
Yeah, I mean, that's when it started to be clocked down. But I think they were time wasting before that. It was 5-4-1. There was no space really for Tottenham, to break them down, and then they had to really, grind them. And I expect exactly the same. So yeah, I mean, Arsenal to win, but draw half time.
Dan, the lads have bounded a few stats around. For those that do follow stats, Burnley are a bit of an anomaly, really. Can they turn up here?
No, I just think they're a poor side, really. Burnley and their record against, they lost all their 5 games against the Big Six. They're not really shocking anybody. 1 goal scored to 15 against in those games. So I'm looking at it. I know you're not at Arsenal on a low after the Derby defeat, but I just think this is an ideal fixture for them to just get back on track. Even the issues they've got at the back at the moment with a few people injured, I just don't think Burnley will have enough of the ball to really test that defence out. So,
what is the team use? Do we know about it? We've got players.
Well, you've got
back?
Obviously Holding's out for the season. Mustafi, I think, is still he was injured, wasn't he, for the game in the week.
Bellerin's been out.
Bellerin's been out.
Kolasinac has been out.
So they've got quite a few issues, and Koscielny, it's whether he can keep. I mean, he come on a sub, didn't he, against Spurs? And he hasn't looked great since he's come back in. So there are issues at the back there, but I just don't see Burnley testing those out. They were unbeaten in 12 at home before the Spurs game. I just think they'll grind this out in the end, and I think they might win by a couple of goals. I've gone for Arsenal to win 2-0 at 11-2.
I thought Koscielny was at fault at Southampton and against. I mean, he's just let Dele Alli just run off him on Wednesday night. So, I mean, he doesn't look like he's up to full speed yet, that's for sure.
Okay, well that game kicks off at 12:30, and from the lads' comments there, maybe only put it on at 1:30, I'd say. It'll all be happening in the second half. Right, we've got 6 games at 3 o'clock to get stuck into. I'll start with you each game, Maliki. Give us some prices and then a quick tip for that one on the south coast. Bournemouth, Brighton.
Yeah, so Bournemouth are odds-on favourites here at 5-6. The draw is 5-2, and Brighton are 10-3. I don't see much to separate the two. I've just gone for the draw at 5-2, and I think it could be quite low scoring. So the 0-0 at 10-1.
Mark?
I've gone for the draw as well. 6 defeats in 7 in the Premier League for Bournemouth, and they've had that hard game on Wednesday against Chelsea, which isn't ideal prep.
2 votes for the draw, Dan?
Yeah, full house for the draw. I mean, Bournemouth on a poor run. Brighton are quite stubborn defensively usually. Only 2 points between them in the table, so draw for me.
Okay, right, let's move on to Chelsea-Leicester, please, Maliki.
Chelsea are 3-10 favourites here. The draw is 4-1, and Leicester are 10-1 underdogs. I didn't really know what to think when I was looking at this game. I think it's one that if Chelsea start strong, that they could really put Leicester to the sword, but I've gone for Chelsea -1 at 10-11, but it would be a low confidence pick.
What do you think, Mark?
Hazard first goal, 100-30 each way with Paddy Power. I mean, if he plays up front like he has done the last 2 Premier League matches, I think that becomes big value.
He's sitting on 99 at the moment, I think, Hazard.
Is it? Yeah. Well, I mean, a good opportunity here to reach the landmark. I mean, Leicester, there seems to be a lack of effort, spirit, desire there, really. Wonder how long Puel can stay on. It's probably the fact that there's, obviously been bigger issues at Leicester in recent times, that he's probably still in the job.
I'm going to go Chelsea and both teams to score at 15-8. I think Leicester do still offer a threat on the counter, especially with Vardy, back now in the mix. They've scored away to Manchester United and away to Arsenal in tough away games. So I'm just backing them to maybe nick a goal here, but Chelsea to win.
Good stuff. Right, next up is Huddersfield versus Southampton, Malachy.
Yeah, so Southampton are favourites here at 6-4. The draw is 2-1, and Huddersfield are underdogs at 21-10. I've gone for a goal scorer here. I've gone Danny Ings. There's 11-2 available in the market. I think he's a bit of a confidence player, and a couple of goals he bagged last week will help him. So Danny Ings, first goal scorer, 11-2.
Well, Southampton for me, draw no bet. Huddersfield have only scored 10 goals this season. I think Moyes a massive loss for them in midfield. Southampton 5 goals in their last 8. That's not bad, particularly for them. And in Ings, they've got a striker that is going to be the best forward on the pitch by a long way.
I'm going to go Huddersfield. I just think at home, I don't think there's a great deal between these teams. They've done 4 defeats in a row. I'm looking at them. The Brighton game, the odd goal, they played with 10 men for most of that game. They're a better team at Bournemouth and lost. Played well at Arsenal and lost but 1-0. And against Newcastle, who had a lot of the ball. I know there's an issue up front with them, but I don't think they're a terrible side, and I'll just take a chance on them at home.
Right, let's move on to Manchester City at home to Palace.
So Man City, unsurprisingly, heavy favourites at 1-8. The draw is 9-1, and Palace are 20-1 outsiders. Can't see anything other than a City win here, and I think they'll crease Palace. I think City have been a little bit out of sorts. They're winning games, but they're not winning them as comfortably as they have done in the past. But I think this is an opportunity for them to really put on a show. So I've gone Man City -2 at 11-10.
I've gone for City to win 3-0. They played 9 home Premier League games this season. 7 of those they scored at least 3 goals. Do wonder as well whether Palace may have one eye on this game against Cardiff they've got on Boxing Day at home, which is much more winnable. And I think you have got to start factoring that into play over the festive period, what games managers target. So if there's any kind of niggles, I just see Hodgson just not sort of playing the players that are doubtful. Easy City win.
I'm going to think could be tighter than the odds suggest. I'm going to go for Man City to win by 1 goal at 100-30. I just think that fixtures-wise, there's been a lot of games for City recently. You look at the Hoffenheim game, the Everton game, the Leicester game, and all these the shot stats are not actually mounting up that massively. They're not playing, like a normal City team that you'd expect to. I think they're not firing all cylinders. Palace have actually played pretty well in a lot of the games against the big clubs, caused them a lot of problems without actually getting a win on the board. I'd say City by 1 goal.
Right, good stuff. Let's move on to Newcastle at home to bottom of the table Fulham.
Yeah, so Newcastle are even money favourites here. The draw is 12-5, and Fulham are outsiders at 11-4. And for this one, I've gone for Fulham draw no bet at 7-4. I think it'll be a close match, possibly quite low scoring, maybe just a 1-goal victory. Just Newcastle's home form has been so poor, and even though Benitez, can work his magic in certain games, tactically he's quite strong. I think there's more to come from Fulham. It's halfway through the season, and I've been expecting more from them every week, and I think this is an opportunity for them to get some points on the board.
The question is, Mark, when will Fulham bag a clean sheet?
I'm not sure they ever will. I mean, some of their defending against the second goal against West Ham was absolutely diabolical. So many mistakes. It was just, absolutely ridiculous. They played okay going forward, has to be said, but that's not the first time this season that they've done that. They've only got 1 away point. I thought Newcastle were okay around about evens. I think they're a better team than Fulham. Having not thought that maybe pre-season, I've had to change my opinion. And this is Newcastle's first home game against a team currently in the bottom 6. So that maybe explains why their home form hasn't been that strong. They've not had easy matches at all. They have won 4 of their last 7 and got a draw at Everton. I think they're in decent nick. I'll go Newcastle.
I'm going to go with the draw here. I'm not totally convinced by Newcastle at home. I think their style of play is quite cautious. He's better suited to playing away from home. I think Fulham eventually will at some stage tighten up a little bit.
So this could be the 0-0.
I think I'm actually. I don't know if I've lost my brain here, but I'm anticipating a lower scoring game here. I don't think Newcastle got the players that West Ham have got to expose a dodgy defence so much. I think tight game, draw for me.
Well, speaking of West Ham, the mighty West Ham at home to Watford, Malachy. What are your thoughts and some Paddy Power prices, please?
Yeah, so West Ham are favourites here 13-10. The draw is 5-2, and Watford are 2-1. And I've gone for an ambitious over 3.5 goals here at 15-8. I think this could be an absolute cracker. I think both teams are decent going forward, and they can both give up plenty of opportunities at the back as well. So I think it's going to be a bit of a goal fest in this one.
Yeah, fixture that tends to throw up quite a few goals, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, do you know, it's the fact that West Ham have won 4 in a row that's putting me off slightly, and that sounds stupid, but these middle table teams, you know, winning 5 games on the trot in the Premier League is not, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's not done that often. So I fully respect West Ham. I'm going to go for a bit like Malachy. I like goals in this one, but I'm going for a 2-2 draw. Watford have conceded at least twice in each of their last 5 games, but I do like what they've got going forward, with Pereira and Delafeu and players like that. So I think this could be a really good game. The over 3.5 is a tempter as well, but I quite like 2-2 and a really juicy price.
What do you think, Dan? You tend to keep a close eye on Watford?
Yeah, I think there'll be goals, but I think there'll be more in Watford's net. Actually, I just think at the moment they are a little bit too loose at the back, and it's a tough place to go at the moment with West Ham on a roll. Crowd are going to be right behind them. The odds against, I'll be with West Ham here.
Be strange for them if the crowd are right behind them. This is what it takes, 4 games in a row. Right, let's move on then to the evening game. And, the timing of this game couldn't be any better. It's Cardiff versus Manchester City. And Manchester United, sorry. And what are your thoughts, Mark?
There's been a bit of money for United. I was looking at United to win 2-1. I mean, that sort of plays to what United have got going forward. The potential maybe for some of their players to leave behind their Mourinho form, and this positivity that is there. It might not last under Solskjaer, but it's definitely there at the moment. I think that the fans are quite excited by OGS going in there. And
is that what we're going with?
Well, why not for the time being? It looks like own goals, doesn't it? I also wondered Pogba 8-1 to score first.
You'd enjoy that, wouldn't you?
He would enjoy it. Solskjaer knows him from his time at United's reserves. He said in the summer when he was asked about United, Solskjaer was asked about them, he said he'd build the team around Pogba if he was the manager. And yeah, the 8-1 looks like a play to me if he starts. And then I was just the 2-1 because I don't like Cardiff at the back in these elite games, but United, have been very poor at the back themselves and have only kept 2 clean sheets. So if you want to pay for Christmas, maybe the Pogba first goal, 2-1 scorecast, but it's not an easy game, this one.
What's the 90 minutes betting there with Paddy Power for this one, Malachy?
United did shorten in, as Mark said, so they're now 8-15 favourites. The draw is 3-1, and Cardiff are 11-2.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it couldn't have been any more of a suitable arena for Solskjaer's first game in charge, really. I am a believer in the new manager factor, and definitely in situations like this, when there was a little bit of toxicity in the camp beforehand. I think Solskjaer's appointment is a lot more likely to aid United's attack than their defence. The talent is there in their attack. I don't think anyone can deny that. But defensively, I don't think there's too much he can do to improve some of the performances of individuals. Phil Jones has had a mare in several games, for example. Like, that's not going to turn around as quickly as possibly the likes of Pogba, Lukaku, Martial getting a second gust of wind. So I like Mark's thoughts there on Pogba. I actually have him written down as anytime goal scorer 12-5. Cardiff have somewhat turned the corner over the last while, and despite losing the last 6 on the bounce away from home, Neil Warnock's managed to turn the Cardiff Stadium into something of a fortress with 4 wins at home their last 5, so that's not to be ignored, and I don't think they'll roll over, but I do expect United to win the game. I've gone for overs here as my main pick, over 2.5 goals at 5-6. I think there could be a few goals in this one.
What do you think, Dan?
I'm going to go for the draw. I was earlier in the week, I looked at the prices before we went. I always look quite a bit in advance. I think they were 4 or 6 United, and I thought, you know what, maybe, that's a bet, because I watched Cardiff at Watford the last week, and they're the worst team I've seen at Watford all season. Although it was 3-2, if it had finished 5 or 6-0, it would have been a fair scoreline. So it might sound strange that I'm tipping a draw, but at home they are a different proposition. They don't play great football, but they cause teams problems. Play very direct, long throws, and that simplistic style of play with United's vulnerability at the back may just cause them a few problems. So the market move all depends if you think Mourinho's a problem or the player's not good enough. For me, 4 to 6 into 8 to 15. That's a big old move. So I'd just be inclined with a market move. I don't think the players are that great. I don't think they're going to suddenly turn into a fantastic team. So I'll take the draw.
Be interesting to see how that Man United side do react. Right, we're going to head off for a quick break, and there's plenty more to get stuck into.
Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.
Well, welcome back to the Racing Post Football Postcast. I'm Dave Clark, joined by colleagues Mark Langdon, Dan Charles. We've got Malachy Rooney on the line from Paddy Power. And on Sunday, we've got Everton at home to Spurs. Malachy, give us some Paddy Power prices for that one and your thoughts on it, please.
So Spurs are favourites here at 6 to 5. The draw is 23 to 10, and Everton are underdogs at 9 to 4. I'd like to see the teams before I had a bet on this one. Mark would probably know better than me, but is Kane a doubt for the game? He didn't start last night. I was wondering, was he going to start?
Yeah, because he had flu, so I mean, I would expect that to have subsided by.
Unless it's man flu.
Well, yeah, but he came on. I didn't know whether it was a little bit of Pochettino knew he wasn't going to play him and maybe didn't want to take the flak if they went out, and so he kind of just said, "Oh, he's not 100%." I'd be very surprised if Kane didn't start.
Okay, well then, in that I had draw written down, but it was just because I had such a concern about Kane playing. I think it's a monumental difference when he plays or not, because they can miss just that focal point of the attack, and that, although Heung-min Son's having a great season again. But Everton have had tricky fixtures away this season. They lost to City, they lost to Liverpool, they lost to United, and they drew at Stamford Bridge. But they've been quite decent at home, albeit against weaker opposition, and they're unbeaten in their last 6 at home. And I don't think they should be fearing Spurs this weekend, especially after the midweek game last night. So I'd like to see the team sheets before I have a bet, but I'm going to stick with my original one, sit on the fence and go for the draw at 12 to 5.
Mark, what do you think?
I thought Tottenham were fair enough. They are third in the Premier League. They're playing really well. You have a look at, don't draw any matches, won 10 of their last 12 in the Premier League. It's 8 wins from 10 away. They're top of the away table. They were second in the away table last season. They go to win everywhere that they play, so I don't think they'll be sort of sitting back at any stage. Kane only got half an hour into his leg, so he should be all right. Son came off, Lucas came off. Maybe Eriksen would be the one that doesn't start. He doesn't tend to be playing him more than once, in quick succession at the moment. But you've got Lamela to maybe come in for Eriksen. I wonder if Spurs might be a little bit more vulnerable against Bournemouth. I expect him to go strong against Everton and then maybe try and get away with it against Bournemouth on Boxing Day. So I was looking at Tottenham I keep on expecting Everton to do better than they actually are. Only 3 points in 8 against the top half teams this season. And that, for me, is a concern. I think that they play nice, okay football, but it's just both boxes. I think they're a little bit lacking at the moment.
Don't be too hard on yourself, Mark. You do well to find someone who catches Everton at the right time.
yeah, that's true.
Dan?
I'll go with Spurs here as well. I just think Everton are a team. They're always this team that always talk about pushing into the top 6. I think they've got an inferiority complex when they play the Big 6. I looked at their results against the Big 6, and I've gone back 22 games. They haven't won in 22 games against Big 6 sides. No wins, 6 draws, 16 defeats. Now that's got to be a bit of a mental problem, isn't it, for as a club and the players? They're going to be, I would imagine, be aware of how poor they've been against the top sides. Spurs, as Mark's mentioned, very, very strong away. As he said, 8 wins in 10 away from home this season. They've got the big boost of winning against Arsenal.
Do you think they'll be tired?
There's a possibility there'll be. I think he'll make a few changes. He made 4 in the week. He's making 4 or 5 for each game. But I agree with you. I think he'll go stronger for the Everton game and bring players maybe like Oliver Skipp might get a game against Bournemouth and try and get away with that. So I just think odds against here, given the mental problems Everton seem to have against the top sides, is fair enough.
It's always been a tough place to go to, Goodison Park. Do you feel that's not there anymore, Dan?
It doesn't seem to be for the top teams, does it? I mean, the fact that the last time they actually beat Manchester City 4-0 in January 2017, that was their last win against the Big 6 team. Since then, They haven't beat a Big 6 side at home. So, no, I don't think the Big 6 teams fear Everton. Certainly, I think the other teams in the division go to Goodison and think, we'll be lucky to get a draw here. The Big 6 go there and expect to win.
Yeah, I was just, I suppose the concern, if you are back in Tottenham, is just how much has been taken out of the legs, because Trippier and Rose are only just coming back from injury, and Vertonghen's out, Dembele's out, and stuff like that. So when he is rotating, it's your Kyle Walker-Peters and Skips that are maybe next in line. But I just think because it's such a because it's a difficult away game, you're going to see a strong team, and this is they outplayed Barcelona the other week. They've just beaten Arsenal 2-0 away from home. There's no reason to fear Everton.
Good stuff. Right, let's move on then. There are 9 games on Boxing Day, as ever, very, very busy. We won't whiz through them all, but anything catch the eye, Mark?
There's a couple. One would be Wolves away at Fulham. That's the early game on Boxing Day or St Stephen's Day in Ireland, and Wolves will have the luxury of an extra day's rest. And I think that could be quite important once we get to this quick turnaround of matches. And I think their style of play is ideally suited to playing against Fulham, who, we've spoken before about their vulnerability at the back. And Wolves will just kind of sit there, defend, stop Mitrovic from scoring, and then hit them on the break. They lost there last season. Neves was suspended for that game at Craven Cottage. And I just think Fulham have maybe lost their identity. They've got worse than when they spent 100 million quid and got worse. The other one was Palace against Cardiff. Cardiff are terrible away from home. And I think that Palace will target this game. City away, I wouldn't be surprised if they duck that one and then really give it everything against Cardiff.
Got some prices there for us, please, Malachi? The Wanderers of Wolverhampton and Palace.
Yes, so Wolves are 5-4 favs away at Craven Cottage. Fulham are 21-10, and the draw is 23-10.
And the Palace game?
Oh, and the Palace game. Palace are 8-13 favourites at home to Cardiff. The draw is 11-4, and Cardiff are 9-2 underdogs.
Okay, Dan, what catches the eye?
I fancy Palace as well. As I said, talking about Cardiff away from home and how poor they were at Watford. I just think Palace, they'll look at this as a must-win game. I think they're a fair bit better side, so I'd fancy them at odds on. And I'd give West Ham a good chance at Southampton. I think there's been a little bit of an overreaction to one win. I fancied Southampton against Arsenal last week because of the injuries that Arsenal had at the back. I think there's been a big reaction now that Ralph Hasenhüttl has completely changed everything there. There's been an improvement, but I don't think a poor side becomes a very good side overnight, and I'd take West Ham to win there.
And Malachi, prices on that game, and what about yourself? Anything catch the eye, those fixtures?
Yes, so Southampton are 7-5 favourites in that one. West Ham are 15-8 underdogs, and the draw is 23-10. And one thing I will say is on Stephen's Day, generally, we lose a lot of money. It's a weird thing. It's every single year, regardless of who's playing who, we always lose money. So if people are thinking about having a bet and they're usually backing a favourite ACA or both teams to score or whatever, just stick to your normal bet during the year, and it's usually a good time to get back some of the previous losses.
Interesting.
I think it's probably because the smaller teams are looking around this time of the year and thinking, where can we pick up our points? There'll be a full set of fixtures on Boxing Day, then there's another full programme on Saturday, and then another full programme the following midweek. And if you're, say, Newcastle going to Liverpool, do you think, well, we'll rest one or two there and then look to pick up our points elsewhere? And the Big Six have got the best squads anyway. That's why they're the Big Six. So I think it's a time of the year that does favour the big teams.
Great stuff. Could be a fab fest there. Go on, Malachi.
One of the things actually one of the lads looked at recently as well, and from talking to people who have played over in England, is that there's a bit of a theory that teams that are around the mid-range in the league, the players do like to enjoy themselves a bit more at Christmas. They're not as strict on their diet or whatever. I don't know how much that factors in, but if you're challenging for the league, your City or Liverpool or whatever, you're going to take it as seriously as any other game. Whereas if you're mid-table around 10, 12, not going to finish top 6, not going to get relegated, you probably will let loose a little bit more over the Christmas day.
Don't judge everyone by your standards.
Outrageous accusations there. There we go, all about discipline perhaps. Anything catch the eye outside the Premiership before we move on to the best bets of the weekend?
I suppose Wickham is one I like. They've got Wimbledon on Saturday, and Wickham's results have really picked up recently. They were a little bit unlucky not to beat Gillingham last time out. They've beaten Barnsley at home, and I just look at Wimbledon and think that it's a poor team, and they were well beat by Charlton last time out, even though they playing against 10 men from the first minute.
I'm going to go for Forest at evens at home to QPR. Got a smaller sort of squad QPR, doing all right at the moment, especially at home. But Cameron, I think, is injured at the moment, so that's a bit of a blow for them in the middle of the park. And I think Forest are improving all the time. Watched their game against Derby on Monday, and I thought they were the better team away to Derby. I think they're getting better all the time, and that's a decent bet.
Maliki, anything catch the eye outside the Premier League?
Yeah, Wrexham was one for me that was pointed out to me. They were away to Aldershot on Saturday afternoon. The market moved slightly in their favour, having opened up odds against, and they've been backed into 4 to 5. But I still think they're backable at that price. Aldershot have been absolutely decimated with injuries. They only had 10 first-team players available for the midweek FA Trophy game. They lost at 7-0. They also haven't won in 9. And just what Mark was saying, with kind of game management over the festive season. Like, this is a game that they probably will write off, and then they can be better prepared rather than risking injuries for their 3 remaining games, which are a lot more winnable. 2 of them are against Maidenhead, which are also relegation candidates, so they might just box this game off as one they're going to lose.
Excellent, right, good stuff. Let's get the lads' naps and a treble to pay for Christmas.
This will not be beaten.
Right, I'll get the guys' tips and then we'll get the price of the treble with Maliki. You have the floor, Mark.
I'm a bit nervous because Chelsea's already gone against this one, but I had Southampton draw no bet down as the one for me. I mean, on expected goals, both of these teams have left a lot of goals on the table. But I think Huddersfield is due to the fact that they haven't got very good strikers. Depotre and Mounier just are not up to scratch. And I think that Southampton have been seriously mismanaged for quite some time under Mark Hughes and even before that, really. And I just think all they were missing was a bit of intent and getting more people into the box. And they showed that against Arsenal, that they can do it. And I mentioned it earlier, but I think Ings is different class to anything else that Huddersfield have got. And I think Southampton are going to kick on.
I'm going to go for in League Two, Carlisle away to Crawley. Carlisle won 4-0 at home to Colchester last weekend. I think it was easily their best performance of the season. They've been getting a few players back that have been injured. Crawley have lost 5 of the last 6, and they're still without Ollie Palmer, their top scorer, who's serving the second game of a 3-game ban.
Good stuff. Maliki, complete that treble for us and give us a price.
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with my Wrexham. I'm going to go Wrexham -1 for this game against Aldershot. I mean, I actually had a look through their squad. I wouldn't be overly familiar with the players that they'd have in that, and I do try to follow the National League a bit because of Salford, but I really think that they could put them to the sword here. It could be a game that Aldershot are beaten before they even step on the pitch, and that's before you even account for the fact that technically Wrexham are just a far superior team. So Wrexham -1, I think 9-4 is the price that's available on that. And if you want to treble up the 3 selections from the lads, you can get a total tally of 12-1 for the treble.
Lovely stuff. Right, thank you for listening. Do rate, review and subscribe. Look out for our racing postcasts as well. They're on Monday and Friday. I thank the guys for their pearls of wisdom. Maliki on the line from Paddy Power as well. Until next time, Merry Christmas.
Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.